Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're doing a deep dive on something pretty interesting, the intersection of entrepreneurship and the Islamic faith.
It's a fascinating area to explore.
It really is. Our listeners sent in some intriguing stuff. We've got academic articles, research excerpts, and even a peek into a 2017 book from Springer called Entrepreneurship and Management in an Islamic Context. Our mission.
To pull out those golden nuggets, of course.
Exactly. To find those aha moments that make you see entrepreneurship in a whole new light.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, so the book starts strong with this quote from Elaine Fayol. It says, "Since Weber, we know that culture and religion are playing a key role in driving human decisions and behaviors for both personal and professional lives."
That's very true.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it gets you thinking, right? Like, how do the principles of Islamic leadership, which are so deeply rooted in faith and ethics, how do those actually play out in the world of entrepreneurship?
That's the million-dollar question. I think to really understand that connection, we first have to kind of unpack what an Islamic leadership model actually looks like.
Okay, so let's unpack it. The book highlights 5 core traits.
That's 5.
Yeah. Piety, humility, social responsibility, self-development, and mutual consultation.
Interesting. Those aren't exactly the typical buzzwords you usually hear at a business seminar, are they?
Right.
Yeah.
And what's really cool is that the book brings these traits to life through stories of early Islamic leaders.
Oh, like who?
Like Prophet Muhammad, Umar ibn al-Khattab, Uwayyah I, and Saladin. Each one of them, in their own unique way, really embodied these qualities and shaped Islamic history.
I can see how that would be a powerful example for people.
Yeah, for sure. And, the book even shares these amazing anecdotes about their leadership styles. Like, take Umar ibn al-Khattab, for example. He was the second caliph, and he was known for his intense focus on equality and justice. You know what he used to do? He would disguise himself and walk among the people just to hear their concerns firsthand. Can you imagine?
Wow. Can you imagine a CEO doing that today?
I know. It's a really powerful example of what it means to truly listen to and understand the people you're leading.
It really is.
And then there's Muwayyah. He was the founder of the Umayyad Caliphate. And he was actually known for his strategic mind and this very hands-on approach as a caliph.
Hands-on? How so?
Well, he didn't just delegate tasks, He built a really solid administrative structure, expanded the empire, and was super focused on economic growth.
Wow. Quite the legacy.
It makes you wonder, how would these leadership qualities, like piety or mutual consultation, how would they actually play out in today's business world?
It's definitely something to think about.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, imagine an entrepreneur who is deeply ethical, who's committed to the well-being of their community, and who's constantly seeking self-improvement and truly valuing collaborative decision-making. It just paints a very different picture of what leadership could be.
It totally does. Okay, so we've talked about leadership, and now let's dive into some actual research, okay? The book features this fascinating study called Micro-Entrepreneurial Motivations in Ghana Do Muslims Differ? And it's by George Champong.
Okay, yeah. A Champong's study, it's a really compelling one. He basically explores this question. Do religious beliefs actually have an impact on what motivates micro-entrepreneurs?
And how successful they are.
Exactly. And he specifically focuses on whether there are any key differences between Muslim and non-Muslim entrepreneurs in Ghana.
And his findings are pretty interesting. He discovered that Muslim entrepreneurs in Ghana, they were way more likely to be driven by creating jobs.
Really?
Yeah, both for themselves and for other people.
Yeah.
Compared to non-Muslim entrepreneurs.
No. It really makes you wonder about the driving force behind that difference.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But it is important to note, Champong does emphasize that while religious belief is a factor, it's not the only one, right? He says other elements are at play for both groups, like age, marital status, and individual entrepreneurial traits, things like that. It's a good reminder that motivation is complex.
For sure. It's not just one thing. It's this whole mix.
Exactly. It's this fascinating mix of individual characteristics, socioeconomic factors, and those deeper cultural and religious values.
Yeah, it all plays a part.
Definitely. And so it gets us thinking, right, like, why might we see these specific findings about Muslim entrepreneurs in Ghana wanting to create jobs? Could it be linked back to Islamic teachings that really emphasize community well-being and social responsibility?
That's a great question. And you know what? That's a question for everyone listening to ponder. Like, think about your own motivations, whether it's for entrepreneurship or just your career choices. What drives you? Is it primarily the desire for profit? Or are you more passionate about making some sort of social impact, giving back to your community? What is it?
I think for a lot of people, it's probably a blend of factors.
Probably, yeah.
But it's definitely valuable to reflect on what we prioritize, personal gain versus collective well-being. And it all circles back to how our values, including religious or ethical beliefs, how those values actually shape the choices we make every single day.
Very true.
All right, you ready to kind of zoom out and look at the bigger picture now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about the Islamic economic system as a whole.
Okay, so the Islamic economic system is fascinating because it's this unique blend of free market and planned economy elements.
That's interesting. A blend, you say?
Yeah. It encourages, private enterprise and free trade, but those ethical considerations and social responsibility are always woven in.
It's like this intriguing balance.
Right?
Okay, so one of the most distinctive things about the Islamic economic system is the prohibition of interest.
Right, riba.
Yeah, exactly. And it comes from the belief that money itself shouldn't generate more money, which I have to admit kind of challenges the way a lot of us think about finance.
It really does.
It does.
Yeah. Instead of interest-based lending, Islamic finance encourages these models of profit sharing and risk sharing.
Okay, so instead of loaning money and charging interest, you become more of a partner.
Right. Invested in the success of the entrepreneurs, sharing in both the rewards and the risks.
It's a totally different approach.
It really is a stark contrast to the conventional financial models where interest-based lending is just the norm. So it really begs the question, how do you think these unique characteristics of the Islamic economic system, how do they actually impact entrepreneurial activity? Does it cultivate a different kind of entrepreneurship altogether?
That's a really big question. It makes you wonder, could Islamic finance, with its focus on ethical investing and social impact, could it offer a whole new model for funding startups and businesses, especially those that are aimed at doing good in the world?
That's what's so interesting. It's a growing area of interest globally.
Yeah.
As more and more people are looking for ethical and sustainable ways to invest their money, the principles of Islamic finance, with that inherent focus on fairness and shared risk, become super relevant. Could offer alternative pathways, and
Right.
valuable insights for the future of finance.
I'm with you on that. Okay, so we've talked a bit about the theory, but what about a real-world example?
Sure.
The book actually dedicates a whole chapter to youth entrepreneurship in an Islamic context, the case of the UAE.
The UAE, yeah. It's a compelling case study because their entrepreneurial ecosystem is just so deeply shaped by those Islamic values and cultural norms,
Yeah.
and it creates this very unique set of opportunities and challenges.
It does, and the chapter really digs into what it calls the 5 key pillars of the UAE's entrepreneurial ecosystem.
Which are?
Okay, so we've got a strong entrepreneurial culture, access to funding, really favorable tax and regulation policies, robust education and training programs, and this really well-coordinated support network.
Wow. Sounds like a very supportive environment for startups.
It does, but the chapter also highlights that even with all of that, family support and personal initiative still play a really crucial role in whether entrepreneurs in the UAE actually succeed or not.
Of course, yeah, because it always comes back to that individual drive, right?
It does. Entrepreneurial success isn't just about external factors. It's that internal drive, that personal initiative, combined with the right support system that really makes a difference.
Absolutely. And this case study really illustrates how the themes we've been unpacking, Islamic values, the power of community support, and that vital role of ethics in business, how it's all woven into the fabric of a modern entrepreneurial ecosystem.
Yeah, and it's like this dynamic interplay between faith, culture, and economics,
Yeah.
which is really fascinating to see in action. It definitely leaves us with a lot to ponder.
It does. It makes you think about how these principles could be applied in different contexts, different cultures around the world.
Right. Taking these ideas and seeing how they resonate and maybe even spark innovation in new and unexpected ways.
Exactly.
It's really interesting stuff. It really makes you wonder, with this growing interest in ethical business and social entrepreneurship globally, could these principles we've been talking about from the Islamic economic system, especially its focus on social responsibility, could they offer valuable lessons for entrepreneurs everywhere, even those outside of the Islamic faith?
That's such a powerful question, and it speaks to something really interesting that's happening right now. We're seeing a kind of convergence where more and more people, and entrepreneurs are included in this, are looking for businesses that aren't just profitable, but they also want them to contribute to a better world.
It's like people are realizing that purpose and profit don't have to be at odds with each other.
Right.
And in that sense, Islamic finance,
Right.
with its emphasis on ethical conduct, shared risk, and community well-being, it just feels surprisingly relevant.
Totally. It's like baked into the DNA of Islamic finance, this whole idea of creating value, not just for investors, but for the community as a whole. So it steers investments towards things that are beneficial to society, and it discourages anything that's harmful or exploitative.
Yeah, it's not just about making money. It's about making money in a way that's responsible, sustainable, and helps create a fairer world.
Yeah.
When you really think about it, that's a pretty radical concept.
It really is. And this whole idea of social responsibility, it extends beyond finance, right, into the realm of social entrepreneurship. It's like the book lays the groundwork, but then it's up to us to connect the dots, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Social entrepreneurship is all about tackling those social problems with entrepreneurial solutions. And when you really look at Islamic teachings, they're just filled with these principles that promote social justice, compassion, and community development.
Exactly. Like take zakat, for example. It's
Yeah.
one of the 5 pillars of Islam.
Right.
And it mandates that Muslims give a portion of their wealth to charity.
Okay.
It's a built-in system of wealth redistribution that's aimed at alleviating poverty and supporting the well-being of the community.
Wow. It's like this structured way to ensure that wealth is shared and used to uplift those in need. And I've also read about the concept of waqf,
Yes.
which is like an endowment made for charitable purposes.
Exactly.
And historically, waqf have funded things like schools and hospitals and these other public services that benefit society as a whole.
Yeah. They're great examples because they really illustrate how deeply ingrained social responsibility is within the Islamic tradition. And these principles, when they're applied to the entrepreneurial world, they have this incredible potential to create businesses that are not only profitable, but they're truly impactful.
Speaking of impactful, let's bring this back to the listener, okay?
Okay.
Imagine if businesses everywhere, no matter their religious or cultural background, imagine if they just incorporated some of these principles. Think about the positive ripple effects that could have.
It's a really powerful vision, and it's exciting to consider. I mean, it suggests a world where businesses are these drivers of positive change, where profits are pursued ethically, and success isn't just measured in dollars and cents, but also in the positive impact that a business has on its community and the planet.
And that's what's so exciting. It's about moving beyond this whole business as usual mentality and really reimagining what's possible when we bring those ethical principles and that commitment to social good to the forefront of entrepreneurship.
Yes. It's a journey worth taking, and it's a conversation worth continuing.
It absolutely is. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's that one key takeaway you want to leave our listeners with? What's that thought-provoking idea they can carry with them?
For me, it's the principles of Islamic leadership, finance, and social responsibility. They offer this wealth of inspiration, and not just for Muslim entrepreneurs, but for anyone who is seeking to build businesses that are both successful and contribute to a better world.
It's about recognizing that the pursuit of profit and the pursuit of purpose, they don't have to be mutually exclusive.
They don't.
In fact, they can beautifully complement each other, leading to a more just, equitable, and fulfilling way of doing business.
I would love that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about leadership, we've talked about some really fascinating research, and we've even zoomed out to look at the Islamic economics system as a whole. But now I want to shift gears one last time and talk about something that's super relevant to all the entrepreneurs listening.
Okay, I'm listening.
This idea of an Islamic business ethos. Because it's one thing to talk about principles in theory, but how do they actually translate into the day-to-day operations of a business?
That's a real question, right?
It is. And thankfully, our listeners provided us with some great material on this. We've got this collection of articles that highlight some really specific practices and values that are often associated with an Islamic approach to business. And you know me, I love getting into the nitty-gritty.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's dive in. So where do we start?
Well, one thing that comes up again and again in these articles is this concept of halal, which basically means permissible or ethical.
Right. It's about ensuring that every aspect of your business, from the products you sell to the way you treat your employees and interact with customers, that it all aligns with Islamic principles.
Exactly. And it's not just about avoiding things that are explicitly forbidden, like alcohol or gambling, which are obviously a no-go in Islamic business, but it's also about operating with integrity, fairness, and transparency in every single transaction.
Absolutely. There's this emphasis on honesty, on fulfilling your promises, and on treating everyone with respect, regardless of their background or belief.
It's about building trust, right?
Right.
Which is essential for any successful business, but it takes on this added layer of importance in an Islamic context. Because it's not just about protecting your reputation in the marketplace, it's also about upholding these ethical and spiritual values.
Exactly. And this idea of ethical conduct, it extends to everything. Like, for example, there's a strong emphasis on avoiding excessive profiteering.
Really?
Yeah. Like, Islamic teachings actually discourage businesses from inflating prices just to maximize their profits, especially when it comes to essential goods and services.
So it's more about finding that balance between making a fair profit and serving the needs of the community.
Exactly. And this goes hand in hand with the idea of social responsibility, which, as we've been talking about, is so central to Islamic business. It's not just about making money, it's about making a positive impact on the world around you.
And that can manifest in so many different ways. Like businesses might choose to donate a portion of their profits to charity, or they might prioritize hiring from within their local community, or they might focus on developing products or services that address social or environmental needs.
Right. And it creates this beautiful ripple effect, because when businesses operate ethically and prioritize social responsibility, it not only benefits their bottom line, but also inspires others to do the same.
It sets a new standard.
Exactly. And it contributes to a more just and equitable society overall.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about halal, we've talked about ethical conduct, social responsibility, but there's one more thing I want to touch on before we wrap up, and it's this idea of Islamic business as a form of worship. Have you heard of that?
Oh, absolutely. It's a really powerful concept because in Islam, the idea of worship, it's not just limited to prayer and religious rituals,
Right.
It encompasses every aspect of your life, including how you conduct your business.
So when you approach your business with this intention, with this understanding that it's a way to serve a higher purpose, it transforms the entire experience.
Right. It really does, because suddenly it's not just about chasing profits, It's about using your skills and talents to make a meaningful contribution to the world. It's about creating something of value, serving your community, and ultimately drawing closer to God through your work.
It's like this really beautiful integration of faith and work. And you know what? I think that's something that resonates with a lot of people, regardless of their religious background. This desire to find meaning and purpose in their work, to feel like they're making a difference.
For sure. It's a universal human need. And it's something that Islamic business principles really speak to.
Absolutely. Well, on that inspiring note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the fascinating world of entrepreneurship and the Islamic context. Hopefully our listeners are walking away with some new insights, some fresh perspectives, and maybe even a little bit of inspiration to bring back to their own entrepreneurial journeys.
Absolutely. Whether you're running a startup or a multinational corporation, these principles, with their focus on ethics, social responsibility, and community well-being, they offer a really valuable roadmap for building businesses that are both successful and make a positive impact on the world.
I completely agree. So until next time, keep exploring, keep innovating, and keep those amazing questions coming. We'll see you on our next deep dive.